In most traditions, the word for mind, spirit, and breath are the same. And we take advantage of that in the meditation because spirit can be a little bit challenging to connect to, mind can be incredibly difficult to manage, and breath becomes our best leverage point for working on all three. When we can get the breath to be slow and deep, over time the mind follows suit on its own. I'll give you a hint, having practiced and taught meditation for a very long time. It's impossible to control the mind. It's impossible to stop the mind. And in most meditative traditions, the analogy they use is like riding a very wild horse. It has its own life. If it wants to go left, it's going to go left, and it's going to go left strongly. We have some regulation and suggestion over it at best. And so most meditation techniques, which are just techniques for trying to work with the mind, are actually skirting around it. You cannot stop it. You cannot think about it to stop it. It won't. It has its own momentum and its own life. And so what we often will do is focus somewhere else. In this case, I had you focus on the breath. And we let the mind do its thing. And the more we can be present with the breath and just let the mind do its thing, eventually through focusing on something else, the mind on its own begins to quiet. It's kind of like a caged animal. You can imagine a really ferocious dog in a cage. And what do we do with it? Trying to stop the mind is like poking a stick at that dog. It just gets more worked up. But you can imagine taking it into a big meadow, an open field, just opening the cage and letting it out. And suddenly, as it sees the space around it, it begins to settle on its own and feel less anxious. And that's very much what we're doing in meditation. There's a momentum into the mind. What you were feeling in that moment was the residue of your previous moments. And what you're doing in this moment is setting how you're going to feel in a few moments later. And so we need to accept that. That's the first place. Your mind doing what it's doing, we accept it. We don't fight it. We let it do its thing. And as best as we can, we have a point of focus. And we're going to do another exercise in a moment to try and work on this.